Good morning, everybody. I hope you're well today. So the webinar this morning is going to be all about what is CSS, and we've got a guest presenter today, Alistair from Redbrain, who's going to give you an insight to all of this and what you can do with Redbrain via Awin. If you have any questions as we run through, in the top right hand corner in Teams, you should see a little question mark box. If you click that, it'll open up a panel and you can submit your questions. Alistair will hang on at the end and do his best to answer those, or of course, if it involves a longer conversation, we can direct you to email. But yeah, without further ado, I will hand over to Alistair.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me, and welcome everyone. My goal here is to explain CSS to you, from why it exists to how it can help you. As Michelle said, you can add questions to live Q&A, and if I can pick them up on the way through, I will. If not, we'll pick them up at the end. So welcome to Redbrain and CSS. Redbrain calls itself the #1 product discovery network, and we'll start with what is a comparison shopping service. So a comparison shopping service is basically allows consumers to search for or compare products offered by retailers, and then consumers can then click through and make those purchases on the merchant websites. Redbrain is the largest CSS in Europe by retailer sales and click volumes. So why does CSS exist? Basically, Google had Google Shopping, and there was no competition in the space and the carousel for the adverts, and the EU fined them 2.4 billion going back to June 17. Google had to find a solution for this, and one of the things they did was they split Google Shopping into a separate division, and then they made a rule that it must be profitable. And to try and avoid the EU coming back at them, they then launched an auction model where they, instead of charging you a CPC, they charge you a 20% fee before the bid is taken to reach the auction. And as part of this, they then allowed CSS partners to purchase clicks at wholesale rates. This meant that it was being competitive. So a CSS partner can basically purchase the same clicks as you would buy through Google Shopping, but for the wholesale rate of 20% lower. And we'll go through why there's a whole bunch of benefits to this for you. So the benefits of CSS and shopping ads is they display your ads at a reduced cost through the CSSs. So whether it's Redbrain or another one, you can go through the different ways of paying, and you'll effectively get a discount on the money you would spend for these ads. And through Google, they use a high relevance match with the user query to select the product. So this is different to CPC when you're using exact match and broad match. They use much more of a relevance to the product and what the search is actually looking for. So the shopping ads in the carousel, as an example you can see in the slide there, allow the user to quickly identify the product relevant to their query and actually see the price and the description and the image. Of course, this has resulted in effectively a whole different way of buying, because you can see that you don't like or you like one, you click straight through, and then we get higher conversion rates because the person is already halfway through what is the product I'm looking for? Is it the right? Does it look right? Is it the right kind of thing? And it's important to note here that any retailer can sell a physical product through Google Shopping. So there are 10 myths, and I promise you this won't go on forever. There are 10 myths here which are important to understand if you're going to use CSS. So the first myth really is using CSS partners for Google Shopping will compete with my own campaigns. This is a question that gets asked a lot, primarily around the fact that you may already be using Google Shopping, and if you don't want to sign up to a CSS partner because you think that's going to impact your own, it doesn't actually work like that. Adding a CSS partner will enhance your campaigns and actually drive new net sales rather than compete with them. The Google Shopping auction process is actually designed to benefit retailers who run multiple campaigns as part of their setup when they split out Google Shopping and then had to let other people have wholesale access to the adverts. It was designed so that it actually works on relevance and you can have multiple partners. So what you should look for here is partners that use AI or machine learning to do this on scale, because that will deliver incremental sales with little or no overlap for your existing campaigns. And a good CSS provider should be able to suggest improvements to your internal team, so you actually work together on this. And the result will be a better performance for your website and your advertising budget. And I have a nice little quote here from Nicola White, who's head of performance marketing Misguided, and she said, "We gained incremental sales, increased our ROI in our own campaign, and gained additional support for Google Shopping by partnering with Redbrain." other CSSs are available. And if we didn't have an additional campaign running for the same time at the same time as our own, we would have missed out on 500,000 in sales in 1 year. So obviously that proves it can be very valuable. Myth 2, I can only work with one CSS partner at a time, or they will compete with each other. This isn't true. You can work with multiple CSS partners, and retailers like eBay and Nike do this very successfully. They run multiple CSS partners alongside their internal teams. So they're running Google Shopping themselves, and then they have multiple CSSs. And the reason for this is because the different CSS partners will focus on different approaches and bidding strategies. So they'll have different automation, or they'll have different they'll have people running each individual campaign. And some like Redbrain, for example, are using AI to drive the long tail incremental traffic that you perhaps as a retailer wouldn't do yourself. And this allows for better data enhancement and optimization, because if you take Redbrain, for example, there's 15,000 retailers on there. So there's a lot of learning that goes into it, and therefore that can help with machine learning actually improve the bidding. The only exception of this is smaller brands with a limited range of products. If you have a small inventory, there may not be enough opportunity for different strategies to complement each other. But if you stock hundreds, it's only hundreds, but if you stock hundreds or thousands of products, you can then benefit by testing more CSS partners. And we recommend that you do test multiple CSS partners. For example, eBay used multiple CSS partners, and they saw 400 million in annual sales. 85% were incremental to their own work and came through Redbrain. The 3 CSS partners promoting the same products will drive up the Google click price. This isn't true either. All these myths are what people think, and they all turn out to be not true. Google has designed the bidding process to avoid the merchant paying more if they have multiple internal or external CSS bids for the same product, because the individual product will only appear once. So all bids for that item from the same merchant will be treated as placed by one CSS. So there's no competition between multiple partners. The only competition is from other merchants. So having additional CSS providers will actually increase your chance of winning that auction against your competition. And the price will always be based on the first losing bids, because that means you can have 1, 2, 10 higher bids via multiple providers. But the cost, if your advert is clicked, is only the runner-up amount. So the result is you won't pay more whether you work with one CS partner or 10. Myth 4, the only way to pay CSS partners is cost per click. False. Cost per click is the most common and familiar way for businesses to bid for online advertising. We all know, obviously, Google AdWords and CPC, and many CSS partners do operate on CPC, but there are some, including Redbrain and a couple of others, who work on a CPA or a cost per action basis. So you don't have to pay when somebody clicks the advert. You're only paying when somebody successfully completes the sale. So what this does, if you go back to the using multiple CSS partners, this way obviously allows you to test another partner and removes the risk and cost of paying for traffic to your website, which doesn't generate revenue. And obviously for those CSSs which only do CPA, cost per action, this encourages them to work very hard to make sure it works. So they actually have to track the spend they have and the conversion rates and make sure that the retailer is incredibly happy with the results, because if they're not, nobody's getting paid. And because they have different strategies, some CSSs will focus on products with the highest profit margins or turn off campaigns during the quieter times of day. Again, that's why you get the ability to run multiple CSSs, because the different strategies mean you can fill in all those holes. Myth 5, CSS only works for very big or very niche retailers. We did touch on this a second ago. It's not true, obviously, as I previously said. However, the clients who get the most benefit are those with a good offering. So a quality website, quality products, and a great data feed is the most important thing. And with a good existing conversion rate, if you have those things, it'll work really well for you. Competitiveness, if your products are priced well and you have good reviews and obviously stock availability, that again is a tick. Meeting demand, are there actually enough customers looking for products? If I was to go home and make Alistair's teacups, there probably isn't much demand for that, so therefore there won't be sufficient search for them. So even if I have a great website, I probably won't be able to drive enough through that. And then the strategy, picking the right partners and the right commission rate. So obviously if you're setting your commission rate, then if you have the margin in that, then it makes sense to pay well to get the conversions. And there's an interesting thing here that it's not linear. So increasing the commission rate marginally can actually have much bigger impact on the end result, because one of the myths, of course, or one of the theories around CPA is that if a CSS runs on CPA and commission only, when they ask for more commission, what they're saying is we'd like more profit. That's actually not true. It's what actually you're seeing is a CSS can see the impression volumes and knows it can drive more revenue through to you, and then may bid more to capture more of that impression share and end up with the same payment back from you, but you end up with more volume. And there are some great success stories for small inventories such as Dyson or G-Tech, because they have a strong position with their industry niche. They're well known, and of course that means they only have to have 5 products because it still works really well. The best way, of course, to test this is CPA only, not CPC, because you're not paying for it if you're a smaller retailer. And all the CSS partners have to have a shopping comparison site, which is where CSS started from. And this, of course, means that even if you have a small site, even if you don't have high levels of search volume, you will still be seen on that site. So somebody seeing a competing product clicking through to Redbrain will actually see your product side by side, because it will still be sorted by the relevance of the search. Myth 6, we're halfway through. All CSS providers are the same, as they work with the same products, targeting the same customers on Google Shopping. No, again, the benefit of working with the different partners is the difference in strategies and performance, because some CSS partners will focus on a subset of products with manual campaigns, which require significant manpower, and other companies like Redbrain use machine learning in combination with those expert humans to deliver scalable performance. And the great thing is the different providers will focus on different things. Some providers will focus by region or on sector. Some may do one technology product, and some may do fashion. And actually, depending where you sit, you can actually run multiple partners to do that. Number 7, you can't buy direct from Google. You have to go to a CSS partner. You can buy direct from Google. You can go straight to Google Shopping, and obviously it's a standalone business from Google. The big difference is the pricing models I touched on earlier. Google Shopping are charging a fixed 20% on the CPC bids before they're entered into the auction. So basically, if you're paying £1 a click there, you're actually only paying 80p, whereas if you pay a CSS partner, you can pay 81p, and you can beat that person who's paying 80, because 20 pence of that is going into Google. Premium CSS partners aren't required to charge a fixed amount or work on a CPC basis. This means they can do CPA or CPC plus an agency fee, or however they decide to do it. So you can actually run Google Shopping yourself and have a CSS partner compete directly and work out which is best for you. Myth 8, you can't run self-service. That's a nice segue. You can't run self-service and manage CSS campaigns at the same time. You absolutely can. As with multiple internal and external campaigns, it's perfectly possible to run a self-service CSS campaign and a managed campaign at the same time. Self-service campaigns aren't necessarily the most effective route for most businesses, but they can be an extra element to your digital shopping. The majority of Redbrain clients opt for a managed CSS to benefit from the knowledge and experience, and also to save them internally costs in running it themselves. Those who do get the value from self-service are companies that usually have massive scale or dominate their industry sector. Number 9, the only way to pay CSS partners is cost per click. So it's obviously very wrong. A good CSS partner will not just work incrementally with the pay-per-click campaigns, but improve them. And what that can actually do, of course, is make your internal team they look like rock stars. So technically, Google Shopping is a pay-per-click channel, but many people within the ad industry think of it as different to text-based PPC. So when you consider the sheer size and scale of the market, you really should consider it as such. And an internal PPC team, so if you have a team within a retailer, they will have that experience from that one client, which is that one business. If you use an agency, they might have tens of clients, and these may even be in specific sectors, which gives them knowledge. But when you get to the bigger CSSs like Redbrain, you'll be dealing with 12,000 plus retailers across millions of products all across the world. So that data knowledge goes back into the system to optimize everything. So you can try all 3 of those at once, and of course you can then measure the benefits of each, and then put more effort and focus into the one that works better for you. Google's consistently increasing the quality control of ads. And some mistakes in your feed can lead to your merchant center being suspended until the issues are fixed. So when you have that, then you have individual law changes in European countries. For example, there's massive variance between the UK, Germany, and Netherlands. If you want to sell internationally, then you have to be able to keep on top of that, which is hard if you're running a small team who don't have the ability to change on the fly when these rules change. And finally, with 10, any digital PPC agency can run CSS campaigns. It's certainly true that any PPC agency can partner with Google Shopping itself or Redbrain or another CSS partner. And if you're currently working in an agency or considering taking one on, it's probably worth discussing the types of CSS partner you would like to use. But when it actually comes to running campaigns as a CSS partner, there are quite a few restrictions in place to maintain quality. So these include having the comparison search engine, which lists all the clients of the CSS, and each CSS must have a minimum of 50 retailers operating in each country that the partner works in. So an agency may not have the bandwidth to do that. And as a premium partner, our requirements and standards we have to meet are higher than non-premium CSS providers, including additional technical certifications and a large number of active merchants. So really, when you go to a CSS, excuse me, look for a premium one, because they'll have jumped the hurdles that Google put in the way to say, are you good enough? Are your team good enough? And do you have enough active merchants to give you the experience to become a premium CSS? And that is the 10 myths. So how do SMEs use CSS? There are 3 ways to do this. The self-service, which is you run it yourself, obviously. Advertising spend is separate, and all the risk is taken by the retailer. So you're running the feed, putting the ads up, setting the controls around the adverts, and paying the bill. And then there's cost per risk, which is obviously cost per click, which is managed, but all the risk is taken by the retailer. So this is the case where you find a CSS who charge you a cost per click and probably a fee on top. So you had your 100% of your bid price. Obviously, if you go with Google Shopping, then you're down to 80%. If you use a CSS partner, you can get that cheaper click, but they will set all the adverts, and you'll obviously pay the bill at the end of the month. And then you've got the companies like Redbrain, which do a CPA, which basically means that we take the feed, and all the risk is taken by the CSS partner. So you can grow your business without actually having to risk your own money. So just to go through that again, cost per acquisition is performance driven. You only pay when Redbrain delivers you an actual sale. We manage everything from fetching your product feed to setting the right bid for every single product. And we do this automatically and at scale 24/7. And we can run alongside your current campaigns that you might be running yourself, or provide you with incremental sales without increasing your CPCs. Incremental sales, by the way, is a term that people seem to have very different definitions of. So the definition we use are their net new sales. These are sales a retailer would not have seen without Redbrain, with minimal overlap. So we try and keep the overlap down to single-digit percentage figures. So actually everything you see through a CPC, CSS-driven Redbrain sale is actually a sale you wouldn't have got without it. It doesn't cannibalize your existing sales. They do not compete with your current digital marketing efforts and your online campaigns. So effectively, it's a no-brainer. So how do Redbrain, for example, support customers? We use data and AI to analyze and optimize the online product listings. We have 9 years, I think it's actually 10 now, we've flipped over into 10 years of online retail traffic generation, and there are 50 people in the team. So and these guys are smart. There's a lot of very clever people working here to help retailers drive more revenue. And every day there's 1 million clicks to retailer websites. And in 2019, we generated confirmed sales of over 1 billion for retailers, and this year we'll have smashed that target. And alongside that, you remember I referenced the fact we have to have a comparison site. We actually have 25 million unique visitors to our site, so supplying the feed actually gets you onto those sites completely free. So what does that mean? There's no risk basis if you use CPA. There's no risk to any self-service you're running. There's no bid price inflation. You don't need a budget. It's simple to start, and it increases sales. It's a great slide, that. So then how would you take the next steps? Well, it's quite easy to get started. You opt in, you agree the details with AWIN, and then Redbrain Technology just does its work. All we actually need is an up-to-date product feed that features high quality product images, and it's regularly updated with stock volume. This is really important. I'm just going to touch on this as you run up to Black Friday and Christmas and all the events like Halloween. We had a retailer last year that was wasn't updating the stock volume. So we were sending clicks through and the conversions weren't happening because people were going through to this retailer to buy the specific products for which there was zero stock. And that creates a bad user experience, because as far as they're concerned, they're seeing the product, they're clicking the image, they're going through to the web page, and there is no stock. So it's really important as you get through to the high volume periods that you deal with that, and either Awin or Redbrain can help you with that. To get started, all you need to do is email uk-advertiserhelp@awin.com, and we work very closely with them to help them onboard new partners. It's a very, very straightforward process. So thank you very much. And now we'd love to take any questions you might have.
Thanks, Alistair. I think hopefully everybody listening in feels it's a bit of a no-brainer to start working with you guys. If any of you haven't got a product feed loaded into your Awin account at the moment, you can email the UK Advertiser Help address and we can share with you instructions, or you can visit the wiki where there's guides there on how to load a feed and ensure that it's being refreshed as required, as Alistair mentioned. We're going to hang on now for 5 minutes or so. So if you've got any questions, insert them into the Q&A chat on the right hand side. We'll just go on mute and we'll answer those. But obviously feel free to reach out to Hannah or myself directly if you want to set up a call. Okay, thanks guys. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any more questions, Alistair, so I think we probably just wrap up for today. And thank you so much again for your time.